The breaking point. Mira hadn't expected her wedding day to end in blood. She stood in the grand ballroom of the Silver Pine estate, her white gown now torn at the hem, watching her former fiancé, clutch his face where she'd struck him. Around them, the Pax elite stood frozen in shock. Nobody touched the Beta heir. Nobody defied him. Not in 3 years of their carefully orchestrated engagement. Not once. Until tonight. "You pathetic Omega!" Derek snarled, his handsome features twisting into something ugly. "You think you can embarrass me? In front of everyone?" Mira's wolf stirred beneath her skin. That feral part of her she'd suppressed for so long, suddenly wide awake. Her hand still stung from the slap, but the pain felt righteous. Cleansing. She'd caught him with one of the servers, pressed against the wall in the hallway, his hands where they had no business being, his mouth whispering promises he'd once made only to her. "The wedding is off," she said quietly, but her voice carried through the marble halls like a command. Derek's laugh was cruel. "Off? You think you get to decide that? You're nothing without this union, Mira. A broken Omega from a disgraced bloodline. I was doing you a favor." The words struck deeper than she wanted to admit. Her family's fall from grace 3 years ago had been swift and merciless. Her father's alleged betrayal of Pack secrets, their exile to the outskirts, her younger brother's constant illness they could barely afford to treat. This marriage was supposed to save them all, but the cost had become too high. "Then I'll be nothing," Mira whispered, reaching up to unclasp the diamond collar from her throat, the traditional Omega's engagement gift. It fell to the marble floor with a crystalline sound that seemed to echo forever. "I'd rather have nothing than have this." She turned to leave, her heart hammering against her ribs, half expecting Derek to grab her, to force her back into the prison of their arrangement. But before he could move, the massive ballroom doors exploded inward. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Every wolf in the vicinity immediately dropped their gaze to the floor. Necks bared in automatic submission. Even Derek, for all his arrogance, went rigid with instinctive fear. Because, standing in the doorway, backlit by moonlight and radiating a power that made the air itself tremble, was someone Mira had only ever seen from a distance. Demon Thornwood, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, and his silver eyes were fixed directly on her. The king's claim. Mira's breath caught in her throat as Demon Thornwood crossed the ballroom floor. He moved like violence barely contained, all coiled muscle and predatory grace beneath an impeccably tailored black suit. The crowd parted before him like water, every wolf instinctively recognizing the apex predator in their midst. Mira had heard the stories, of course. Everyone had. The Alpha King who'd unified the fractured northern packs through either diplomacy or domination. The warrior who'd killed his own father to prevent a civil war. The ruler who answered to no one. He shouldn't be here. The Silver Pine Tack was minor nobility at best, hardly worth a king's attention. But he was here, and he was looking at her. "Well." Damon's voice was dark honey and shattered glass. filling the cavernous space effortlessly. This is entertaining. Derek found his voice, though it emerged higher than usual. Your Majesty, we. This is simply a domestic matter. A misunderstanding between. I wasn't speaking to you. The Alpha King's tone didn't rise, but Derek flinched as if struck. Those silver eyes never left Mira's face. The Omega. What's your name? Every instinct screamed at Mira to drop her gaze, to submit, to make herself small. That's what Omegas did in the presence of dominant alphas, especially the Alpha King. But she just walked away from one cage. She refused to crawl into another. So she lifted her chin and met his stare directly. Mira Ashford. Something flickered in Demon's expression. Surprise, maybe, or interest. The corner of his mouth curved upward, and several people in the crowd gasped at the audacity of her defiance. Ashford, he repeated, as if tasting the name. The disgraced family. Your father was accused of selling pack secrets to the Eastern rebels. Shame burned through her chest, but Mira held firm. Accused, never proven. No, Damon agreed thoughtfully. Never proven. Interesting timing, wasn't it? Your family's fall came just weeks before your engagement to the Beta heir was announced. His gaze finally shifted to Derek, who'd gone pale. Almost as if someone needed you desperate enough to accept certain arrangements. Derek's jaw clenched. Your Majesty, I don't know what you're implying. I'm implying, Damon interrupted, his voice dropping to something dangerous, that I've spent the last 3 years investigating corruption in the regional packs. And your name, Beta Heir, appears in my files with remarkable frequency. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Mira's mind reeled. Derek was involved in her family's ruin? The man she'd agreed to marry, had endured for 3 years, had... But that's not why I'm here tonight, Damon continued, turning back to Mira. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell cedar and winter storms. Close enough that her wolf responded with a confusing mix of fear and fascination. I'm here because 6 months ago, I attended a charity gala. I saw an Omega in a blue dress serving champagne, and when she smiled at a sick child, something in me recognized. Mira's heart stuttered. She remembered that night, remembered serving drinks to maintain her family's last threads of dignity, remembered comforting a small girl who had been frightened by all the aggressive alpha energy in the room. Mates, Damon said simply, and the word detonated like a bomb. The entire ballroom erupted into chaos. Mira couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The Alpha King was claiming she was his mate? It was impossible. Omega Alpha bonds were rare enough, but an Omega and the Alpha King? You're insane, she whispered. Probably, he agreed, a dark smile playing at his lips. But you're mine, Mira Ashford. And I protect what's mine, the devil's bargain. Mira's world had narrowed to the impossible man standing before her, and the single, catastrophic word echoing in her skull. Mates. This is ridiculous. Derek's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts, brittle with barely controlled panic. Your Majesty, With all due respect, she's my fiancée. The contracts are signed, the bloodlines agreed upon, contracts signed under false pretenses, Damon said, not even bothering to look at Derek. His focus remained fixed on Mira, with an intensity that made her skin prickle. After framing her family to force her hand, those contracts are void. You can't prove. In a movement too fast to track, Damon had Derek by the throat, lifting him off his feet effortlessly. The Beta heir clawed at the Alpha King's grip, his face purpling. But Damon's expression remained perfectly calm. "I can prove everything," Damon said quietly. "Every bribe you took from the Eastern rebels, every secret you sold, every lie you told to destroy the Ashford family and claim their daughter like a trophy." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a lethal's whisper only the supernatural hearing of the nearby wolves could catch. "I've been building this case for months. The only question is whether I destroy you publicly or let you slink away in disgrace." He released Derek, who crumpled to the marble floor, gasping. The mighty Beta heir looked small suddenly, pathetic. Mira's legs felt unsteady. 3 years. 3 years she'd sacrificed, endured, believing she was saving her family. And it had all been Derek's manipulation from the start? Why? The word emerged broken. She was looking at Derek now, this man she'd almost bound herself to forever. "Why ruin us just to have me?" "I'm nobody." "You're an Ashford," Derek spat, climbing to his feet with as much dignity as he could muster. "Pure bloodline, ancient Omega heritage. Having you would have legitimized my claim to higher status. And controlling your family's old connections would have been—" He caught himself, seeming to realize he was confessing in front of the entire pack elite. "Would have been useful for your treason," Damon finished. "The Eastern rebels needed someone on the inside. You gave them everything." The gathered wolves erupted in shocked murmurs. Treason. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Mira felt dizzy. Her entire reality was reshaping itself. Everything she'd believed crumbling into dust. She'd thought herself broken, disgraced, lucky that anyone would want her. But she'd been targeted, manipulated, used. "Come with me." Demon's voice pulled her back to the present. He was extending his hand, an elegant gesture that somehow felt more like a command. "You don't belong here." "I don't belong with you either," Mira countered, even as something in her chest pulled toward him with frightening intensity. The mate bond, if that's truly what this was, singing between them. "You're the Alpha King. I'm a disgraced Omega. This is insane." "Yes," Damon agreed simply. "It is." "Then why?" His expression softened slightly, those silver eyes holding something that looked almost like vulnerability. "Because for 6 months, I haven't been able to think of anything but you. Because my wolf recognized yours the moment I saw you. And I've been investigating Derek's corruption ever since, waiting for the right moment. Because I'm tired of political marriages and strategic alliances and never having something that's real." He stepped closer. "Because you slapped a Beta heir in front of the entire pack, threw away your only security, and chose dignity over survival. That kind of strength is rare. Mira's wolf was howling, begging her to take his hand, to accept this impossible gift. But her mind, scarred by 3 years of Derek's subtle cruelty, by her family's suffering, by too many broken promises, held her frozen. "I don't trust alphas," she whispered. "Smart," Demon said. "Don't trust me. But use me. Come to my territory. Let me restore your family's name. Give your brother the medical care he needs. In exchange," he paused, something dangerous flickering in his gaze. "In exchange, give me 6 months to prove the mate bond is real. 6 months to earn your trust. If after that time you want to leave, I'll let you go. I'll give you resources, protection, freedom to build whatever life you choose." It was too good to be true. Had to be a trap. But as Mira looked around the ballroom, at Derek's hatred, at the pitying stares of the pack elite, at the ruins of everything she'd sacrificed for, she realized she was already in a trap. Maybe it was time to choose a different cage. Or maybe, the terrifying voice in her heart whispered, it was time to bet on something impossible. She took Damon's hand, the castle of shadows. The Thornwood estate loomed against the night sky like something out of a Gothic fairy tale. All sharp spires and ancient stone, perched on a cliff overlooking the northern sea. Mira had been silent for the entire 3-hour drive, processing the rubble of her former life. Demon hadn't pushed her to talk, which she appreciated. He'd made 2 phone calls, one arranging for her family to be relocated to the estate's medical wing, another to his attorneys about Derek's prosecution, and then left her to her thoughts. Now, standing in the grand entrance hall, with its vaulted ceilings and centuries-old tapestries, reality was beginning to sink in with crushing weight. "Your rooms are in the East Wing," Damon said, his voice echoing off marble floors. "You'll have privacy, your own staff, whatever you need. Your brother arrived an hour ago. My physicians are already examining him." Mira's head snapped up. "Ethan's here? Already?" "I don't waste time." Damon shrugged off his jacket, and Mira tried not to notice the way his shirt pulled across his shoulders. "When I commit to something, I follow through." A striking woman descended the curved staircase, silver-haired despite appearing only middle-aged, her posture radiating authority. "Your Majesty, the Ashford boy is stable, exhausted, and malnourished, but the preliminary diagnosis is promising. With proper treatment, he should recover fully." The relief that crashed through Mira nearly buckled her knees. Ethan could recover. Her baby brother, who'd been slowly dying because they couldn't afford proper care, could actually recover. "Thank you," she whispered, and hated how her voice broke. The woman's expression softened. "I'm Dr. Celeste Winters, the PAC's head physician. You must be Mira." She extended a hand, and Mira shook it, surprised by the genuine warmth there. "Welcome to Thornwood. I'm sure this is all overwhelming." "That's an understatement," Mira managed. "Celeste, have rooms prepared for Mira's parents as well," Demon instructed. "They should be with their son." Something twisted in Mira's chest. He was reuniting her family, giving them back everything Derek had stolen. It felt like a dream, the dangerous kind, where waking up would destroy her. "Can I see Ethan?" she asked. "Of course. Celeste will take you." Demon turned toward the east corridor, then paused. "Mira, we should talk tomorrow about expectations, ground rules. I meant what I said about earning your trust, but there are certain realities about life here you need to understand." Realities. Right, because this wasn't a rescue, it was a bargain. And she'd just agreed to 6 months as the Alpha King's what? Potential mate? Prize? She didn't even know. "Tomorrow," she agreed, too exhausted to face any more revelations tonight. Following Dr. Winters through the labyrinthine halls, Mira caught glimpses of the estate's odd contradictions. Modern security systems beside medieval suits of armor. Priceless artwork hanging next to children's drawings, clearly done by pack members' kids. It felt lived in despite its grandeur. Less like a museum and more like a home. Ethan was in a private suite that put their old house to shame. All cream walls and soft lighting, and medical equipment that hummed quietly. Her 12-year-old brother looked impossibly small in the large bed, but his color was better than she'd seen in months. "Mira?" His voice was weak but alert. "What's happening?" "Dad said we're at the Alpha King's estate, but that's crazy, right?" She moved to his bedside, taking his hand. "It's a long story, but we're safe. You're going to get better." "Did you really hit Derek?" A hint of his old mischief sparkled in his eyes. "Dad said you slapped him in front of everyone." Despite everything, Mira laughed. "I really did." "Good. I never liked him." Ethan squeezed her hand weakly. "He looked at you like you were something he owned. I'm glad you're free of him." Free. Was she? She'd traded Derek's cage for Demon's castle. Different prison, different jailer. Except Demon's eyes didn't hold possession. They held something far more dangerous. Recognition. As if he saw not what she could do for him, but who she actually was. "Rest," she told Ethan softly. "We'll talk more tomorrow." She stayed until he drifted off, then allowed Dr. Winters to guide her to her own rooms, a sprawling suite with a four-poster bed, a private balcony overlooking the moonlit sea, and more space than her entire family's previous home. Mira stood on the balcony, letting the salt air sting her face, trying to make sense of the past 6 hours. This morning, she'd woken up preparing for a wedding to a man she didn't love. Tonight, she was in the Alpha King's castle, her family safe, her enemy exposed, and her future terrifyingly uncertain. The mate bond hummed beneath her skin, that inexplicable pull toward Demon that defied logic. She could feel him somewhere in the castle, as if her soul had suddenly developed a compass that only pointed toward him. 6 months, she whispered to the wind. 6 months to figure out if this was salvation or just a prettier trap. 6 months to guard her heart against a man who'd already demonstrated he could destroy her world with a single command or rebuild it. 6 months to decide if she dared believe in fairy tales after all. The chains around her heart had shattered tonight, but what would grow in their place? Freedom or a bond even stronger than steel. The Alpha's secret. Mira woke to unfamiliar silk sheets and sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, momentarily disoriented until the previous night's events crashed back like a tidal wave. The Alpha King's estate, the mate bond, her ruined wedding, and Derek's exposure. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. A young woman in elegant staff attire entered with a tray. "Good morning, Miss Ashford. I'm Elena, assigned to assist you during your stay. Breakfast and His Majesty request your presence in his study at 10 o'clock, if you're amenable. Requests, not demands." Mira filed that detail away. "Thank you." "Is my family—" "Your brother had a good night. Your parents arrived at dawn and are with him now." Elena's smile was genuine. "The whole estate's buzzing about you, if you don't mind me saying. In a good way. Nobody's ever seen the king so focused." After Elena left, Mira found the walk-in closet stocked with clothes in her exact size. Casual elegance, not the restrictive formal wear Derek had preferred. Another thoughtful detail that felt both considerate and slightly unsettling. How much had Demon learned about her in 6 months of watching? She chose dark jeans and a soft sweater, armor of normalcy against the surreal situation. Demon's study was all dark wood and leather, walls lined with books that looked actually read rather than decorative. He stood by the window when she entered, silhouetted against the morning light, and Mira's breath caught despite herself. In casual dress, dark slacks, and a gray Henley, he looked less like a king and more like a dangerous promise. "You came," he said, turning. Something in his expression suggested he hadn't been certain she would. "You reunited me with my family and gave my brother medical care," Mira replied, staying near the door. "I'm not ungrateful enough to ignore a summons. Sorry. A request?" His mouth quirked. "It's a request. Always will be. I'm not your keeper, Mira." "Then what are you?" "Someone trying to figure that out himself." Damon gestured to the sitting area. "Please, this conversation works better if you're not poised to flee." Reluctantly, Mira sat, though she perched on the edge of the leather couch. Damon took the chair across from her, maintaining distance. Another gesture, she noted. "Ground rules," he began. "First, you have complete autonomy here. Your rooms, your schedule, your choices. You're not a prisoner or a possession. If you want to leave the estate, you can. I only ask you, take security because Derek isn't the only enemy I've made." "Second," he continued, "the mate bond isn't a claim I'm making on you. It's a reality we're both navigating. I feel it. I think you feel it. But feelings don't equal obligations. You owe me nothing except the 6 months you agreed to." Mira studied him, searching for the manipulation, the trap. "And what do you get out of this?" "The truth, not the pretty version." Something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe. "The truth?" "I'm tired, Mira. I've been Alpha King for 7 years. 7 years of politics and assassinations and alliances built on lies. I've had 3 arranged marriage proposals this year alone, each one a strategic move on someone's power chessboard." He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. "Then I saw you." No agenda, no calculation, just genuine kindness to a frightened child. And my wolf recognized something real for the first time in my life. That's not enough to upend your world, Mira countered. No, Damon agreed. But investigating Derek's corruption, discovering he'd systematically destroyed a family to claim you like property, that made me realize how broken our entire system is. Omegas treated as commodities, families ruined for political gain, power concentrated in the hands of people like Derek. His jaw tightened. I want to change that. I want to build something better. And I think you, someone who's experienced the worst of our world but still chose honor over survival, might be the partner I need to do it. Partner? Not possession. Not trophy wife. You're asking me to be a political symbol, Mira said slowly. The disgraced Omega, elevated by the Alpha King. A statement. I'm asking you to be yourself, Demon corrected. Everything else is just details. Before Mira could respond, the study door burst open. A man stormed in, tall, dark-haired, with eyes like Arctic ice. Demon, we need to talk about this insanity. He stopped, seeing Mira. Oh, you're her. Marcus, meet Mira, Damon said dryly. Mira, my brother, and Beta, Marcus Thornwood, who apparently forgot how to knock. Because you've apparently forgotten how to think, Marcus shot back. Do you have any idea what you've done? The council is in chaos. Half the regional alphas are demanding explanations. You can't just claim a disgraced Omega as your mate without… Without what? Damon's voice dropped to something dangerous. Without asking permission. I'm the Alpha King, Marcus. I don't need permission. You need strategy, Marcus insisted. He turned to Mira, and she saw genuine concern beneath his frustration. No offense to you, Miss Ashford, but this affects the entire power structure. The council will use this as ammunition. The old bloodlines will revolt. Let them try. Demon stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. I've spent 7 years playing by their corrupt rules. Maybe it's time they learn to play by mine. Mira watched the brothers face off, understanding dawning. Demon wasn't just offering her sanctuary. He was using their bond to wage war on the entire political system. She was a weapon in a conflict she barely understood. You should have told me, she said quietly. Both men turned to her. That claiming me would cause this kind of upheaval. That I'd become a target. Would you have said no? Demon asked. Mira considered. Derek exposed. Her family safe. Her brother healing. Would she trade that for the alternative? No, she admitted. But I deserve to know what I was walking into. You're right. Damon's expression softened. I apologize. The full picture. There are elements in the council who've grown wealthy on corruption. They won't give up power easily. By exposing Derek, by claiming you, I've essentially declared war on that old guard. You'll be scrutinized, criticized, possibly threatened. Then why not choose someone less controversial? Mira challenged. Someone politically advantageous? Because I'm done with advantageous, Demon said simply. I want real. The mate bond pulsed between them, that inexplicable connection that defied every logical objection Mira could raise. She'd spent 3 years making careful, safe choices that had led nowhere. Maybe it was time to try something reckless. 6 months, she said firmly. You prove you're not Derek in a crown. You prove this isn't just politics. And if I'm going to be a symbol in your war, I get a say in how that war is fought. Demon's smile was fierce and genuine. Deal, Marcus groaned. You're both insane. Probably, Mira and Demon said in unison, then shared a look that sent heat curling through Mira's chest. The chains around her heart had shattered. Now she just had to decide what to build from the ruins, and whether to let an Alpha King help her do it. When everything changed. 3 weeks at Thornwood Estate had taught Mira that fairy tales were more complicated than storybooks suggested. Her brother was thriving, color in his cheeks, strength returning, even laughing again. Her parents had been welcomed with genuine respect. Her father's name quietly cleared through Demon's investigation. The staff treated her with kindness, not the condescending pity she'd endured for years. And Demon was systematically destroying every defense she'd built around her heart. He didn't push. That was the problem. Every morning, breakfast appeared at her door with a handwritten note. Never romantic, just small observations. The sea is particularly gray today. Seems to match my council meeting schedule. Or, your brother asked me about sword fighting. Apparently, I need your permission to teach him. Do I have it? He'd given her space in the vast library, the oceanside gardens, everywhere except one place. He kept appearing wherever she was, as if drawn by the same invisible thread pulling at her. Today, she'd found him in the estate's training grounds, working through sword forms with lethal grace. Sweat gleamed on his skin, his shirt discarded, and Mira's Omega instincts responded with a hunger that terrified her. You're staring, Damon said without breaking his routine, a hint of amusement in his voice. You're shirtless in public, Mira countered, refusing to be embarrassed. Seems designed to attract staring. He finished the sequence and turned to face her, breathing only slightly elevated despite the intense workout. Fair point. Walk with me? They ended up on the cliff path overlooking the sea, the salt wind whipping around them. Damon had pulled his shirt back on, though Mira's traitorous brain had memorized every muscle. Marcus says, I'm moving too slowly, Demon said abruptly, that I should be courting you properly. Formal dates, grand gestures, the traditional alpha pursuit. And what do you think? Mira asked. I think you've had enough of alphas telling you what you should want. He stopped walking, turning to face her. I think you need space to figure out who you are without Derek's manipulation or anyone else's expectations. That's very enlightened of you, Mira said carefully. Don't give me too much credit. His smile was self-deprecating. I'm also terrified. You're the first real thing in my life, Mira. If I push too hard, too fast, I lose you. If I don't push at all, you might never see me as anything except the king who rescued you. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something in Mira's chest. This man commanded armies, ruled territories, toppled corrupt officials with a word, and he was afraid of her rejection. You want to know what I see? Mira asked, stepping closer. The mate bond sang between them, electric and undeniable. I see someone who moved heaven and earth to save my family, who treats his staff with respect and his brother with affection despite their arguments, who sends my teenage brother books on sword fighting because Ethan mentioned interest once. She paused. I also see someone carrying the weight of an entire kingdom, who probably hasn't let himself be vulnerable in years, who's using our bond as an excuse to finally choose something for himself. Damon's eyes had gone dark silver, intense. And what do you choose, Mira? I'm still figuring that out, she admitted. 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew my life. Marry Derek, save my family, survive. Now everything's different, and I don't know who I am without those chains. Then discover it, Demon said softly. Here, with me, or somewhere else. Whatever you need. Before Mira could respond, Marcus appeared at the head of the path, his expression grim. Demon. The council's called an emergency session. Derek's family is demanding a formal inquiry into your conduct. They're claiming you violated protocols, that Mira's engagement was legally binding. Let them claim whatever they want, Demon said flatly. They've allied with the Blackwater and Red Moon packs, Marcus continued. 3 council seats, maybe 4. They're actually threatening a vote of no confidence. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. A vote of no confidence could strip Demon of his title, fracture the territories, start a civil war. This is because of me, Mira said, ice flooding her veins. They're using me as a weapon against you. They're using corruption and fear, Damon corrected. You're just the excuse. But Mira understood politics enough to know the truth. She was the vulnerable point, the crack in Demon's armor. Remove her, and the challenge might fade. What if I left? She asked quietly. Not forever. Just publicly stepped back, gave you space to. No. The word was steel. Demon's hand came up to cup her face, gentle despite the command in his voice. You are not sacrificing yourself again. Not for me, not for them, not for anyone. But your kingdom will survive or fall based on whether I have the courage to fight for what's right, Demon interrupted. And you, Mira Ashford, are right. The bond between us, the future we might build, that's real. That's worth fighting for. The mate bond exploded between them like a supernova, that connection burning away the last of Mira's resistance. She could feel his determination, his fear, his absolute certainty that she was worth any cost. And suddenly, she knew. The chains around her heart hadn't just shattered. They'd transformed into something else entirely. Into choice. Into possibility. Into the terrifying, exhilarating freedom of choosing herself. And maybe choosing him. Then we fight, Mira said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Together. But not as your rescued Omega or your political statement. She met his silver eyes directly. As your partner. Your equal. Or not at all. Demon's smile was fierce and proud and absolutely devastating. I wouldn't have it any other way. He kissed her then, not gentle, not tentative, but claiming and surrendering all at once. The mate bond locked into place with an almost audible click, and Mira felt their souls recognize each other completely. When they broke apart, Marcus was watching with a bemused expression. So, should I tell the council you'll be attending with your mate? Tell them, Damon said, not looking away from Mira, that the Alpha King and his queen will be there, and we're done playing by their corrupt rules. Queen. The word should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. The chains around her heart had shattered completely, but in their place, something infinitely stronger had formed. Not bondage, but a bond chosen freely. Not a prison, but a partnership built on truth, respect, and the courage to believe that broken things could be remade into something beautiful. Mira Ashford had walked into Thornwood Estate as a disgraced Omega with nothing left to lose. She would walk into that council chamber as a queen, ready to change the world. The end. Or is it just the beginning? Drop sequel if you want to see Mira and Demon take on the council. Thank you for reading this journey of transformation and true partnership. What did you think of Mira's evolution? Tantar, Nova Ment.